As the era of social media has proliferated and NBA superstars have become more and more accessible, so too have the opinions of the masses who are now given a platform to broadcast whatever they'd like off to millions of people. This has of course resulted in a wide variety of takes, both great and not so great for any and every superstar we've seen in the league, but in recent memory, one unfortunate forward has become uniquely disliked by the wider NBA fanbase, and that's of course none other than Jayson Tatum. For about the past year or so, it seemed like Tatum has been unable to do anything right in the eyes of fans, which has led to a pretty skewed perspective of him in social media, which is why I've tended to mostly disregard most of what I've seen about him, because it's usually fueled by hate, memes, or both, which I have no problem with, but I'm not going to take it as serious criticism. However, as I was scrolling through Instagram Reels, rotting my brain from the inside out, I stumbled across the take that I felt was uniquely worthy of examination and research because it reveals a wider point about the NBA and player development as a whole. In the video, it describes the ongoing conversation about Jayson Tatum's player development, and particularly the way that he seems to have lost his metaphorical bag of tricks that he showed off as a rookie and has seemingly regressed in the handle and shot making department. Now, at this point in the season, the conversation may feel a bit outdated, especially because he gave the Knicks the belt on opening night, but I do agree that to a certain extent there has been a change in Tatum's operating style as a whole. But I believe that the rabbit hole goes deeper than a simple loss of skill, and it can be broken down into distinct possibilities that have been discussed in the wider conversation. So, without further ado, let's talk about Jayson Tatum and the proification of his game. Naturally, before we can even begin to think about what exactly happened to his skill, we have to talk about his shot-creating bag and what that was comprised of during his younger seasons. And I believe that the main point being utilized for this conversation is the pull-up jumper, mainly from the mid-range. Now, while this is far from a perfect way to discuss this, unfortunately, to let you guys in on a little secret, I don't have $10,000 to use Synergy. So we'll rely on the NBA Advanced Stats page along with Cleaning the Glass to extrapolate from there with our information. According to numbers from NBA Advanced Stats, during that stellar 2017-18 rookie regular season, JT's second most favored shot was the pull-up jumper, sitting at a 35.4% frequency, coming in second only to shots at less than 10 feet. Meaning that if JT wasn't getting all the way to the cup, he was settling more or less for that pull-up jumper. And while the phrase settling may seem a bit harsh, if you break down that number his rookie year, Tatum would end up shooting 40.4% total on pull-up jumpers, but of these shots, most if not all of them came from the mid-range at a 27.7% frequency, compared to only 7.8% of three-point pull-ups. In a league that has been hell-bent on slowly phasing out the mid-range, this is already damning information, but allow me to add more context to his propensity for these pull-ups by turning to an eerily prophetic scouting report from the Boston Celtics' own NBA page. In this report, Boston said of Tatum that he's, quote, best suited to operate offensively in isolation, coming straight out of Duke, and that he also had, quote, an impressive first step and attacks the basket with commitment, but interestingly, he was also described as being, quote, not yet an above average ball handler. Now, while a player's ability to handle the ball is nearly impossible to quantitatively analyze, and stands as all the more proof of why sometimes we should just enjoy the games, I will note that in the time since he was a rookie, Tatum's turnover ratio has dropped while both his assist and usage rate have skyrocketed, and once we begin to talk about his shot breakdown in isolation, this point becomes more and more difficult to stand on. But when you take a look at Tatum's numbers from the past 2023-24 season, you begin to see the validity of the concern from fans that his bag may have gotten a bit less deep, as the mid-range pull-up, which was a mainstay in rookie JT's game, has been nearly wiped entirely from his shot profile, going from a 27.7% frequency to a measly 16.4%. However, while JT's mid-range pull-ups, which have been a mainstay in the bagwork community and utilized by most every lethal scorer you can imagine, has all but disappeared from his game, the stats indicate that JT replaced the shot in favor of the three-point pull-up in his arsenal, which was nearly non-existent in his rookie bag. Compared to the 7.8% frequency of three-point pull-ups that he had as a rookie, this number has skyrocketed to 29.8%, making the pull-up three the most utilized shot in JT's three-point shot-creating arsenal, as only 11.8% of his threes came off the catch and shoot. So we can see that the bag is still present somewhere in JT's game, although it may appear a bit different. And this will become a theme in this video, but allow me to point to a different aspect of Jayson Tatum's shot chart frequency to transition us into the second part of his ever-shrinking bag: his physical changes. Interestingly enough, while JT's begun utilizing the three-point line far more effectively in the time since his rookie year, he's also been getting to the rim at a similar rate. But the approach that he's taken has also been a subject of scrutiny by fans and evaluators alike. Because if you've taken any time to watch or even listen to NBA Twitter, you'll notice one thing. He's bulked up like a lot. And of course, that's the ideal for any young NBA rookie, but in Jayson's case, once again, that scouting report took care to highlight the importance of his physical development to the Celtics training staff in particular. They talked about the idea that JT already had a strong physical frame, but he needed to develop, and took care to mention that he also didn't possess the explosiveness and physical gifts of a gifted athlete. Now, this is the Celtics scouting report's language, but I always feel the need to step in and clarify here that I'm not saying this. I got cut from my middle school team, man. But regardless, even though everybody loved to highlight JT's fluidity as an athlete when he was lighter, particularly in his ability to get to beautiful Euro steps and long finishes, the numbers also suggest that all of this wasn't as great as it seems. According to Cleaning the Glass, in the 2017-18 season, JT only finished at a 59% clip at the rim, placing him in the 35th percentile of all forwards in the league. And for a 19-year-old with already needed physical development, this is what would be expected, but as he's progressed throughout his time in the league, we've seen that he's only improved as a finisher. He went from a 59% finisher in that stellar deep bag rookie campaign to a 72% finisher on more attempts at the cup, putting him in the 83rd percentile for all forwards in the league in the 2023-24 season. The method that he may get to the rim may have changed, but he's doing so better and at a higher clip, and this change has undoubtedly been fueled by all the extra muscle that Tatum has packed onto his frame, courtesy of Celtics trainer Nick Sang, who by all accounts has become one of, if not JT's favorite person in the organization. So by all accounts, it would appear that Tatum's physical development is a net positive, and couldn't possibly be the root of his bag's disappearance, right? While allow me to draw your attention to the same numbers which indicate that across the board, in all jump shooting categories from short middies to long threes, JT's numbers were all down compared to his rookie year. And of course, we could all say that it was a down year and JT's regression as a jump shooter was extensively covered this past season, so there's no real need to harp on it, especially after what he did to us on opening night. But I will add that it does raise an interesting point about the double-edged sword of weight gain and jump shooting in the league. The paradox of Giannis's development has been discussed at length, but Tatum's case does serve as an interesting story about the perils of weight gain, and it's not an entirely unfounded rumor either, as reports have come out that he worked tirelessly this offseason with trainer Drew Hanlon to rework his jumper, which fell off a cliff in the previous year. And part of this numbers regression, of course, comes courtesy of defenses having more time and incentive to game plan for you as an all-NBA 30-point-per-game scorer, as opposed to a rookie who wasn't necessarily their team's main point of attack. However, the third part of the tale, and the main detail in cracking this case, is the context. Context. Both the bane and lifeblood of any and every good NBA conversation worth its weight. Specifically in Jayson Tatum's case though, the context of his changing shot chart can be fleshed out with the changes in coaching styles that he's undergone since his rookie year, along with the changes he's seen roster-wise as his career's progressed. In 2017-18, he was being coached by Brad Stevens, and while a simple Google search would tell you that Stevens had a tendency to employ a spread offense during his rookie year, implying lots of open cutting space and some more movement, anecdotes from Celtics fans paint the picture of a much more problematic answer as to the origin of rookie Tatum's bag. See, Celtics fans on Reddit, the most trusted source in any NBA debate, pointed to serious questions about Brad Stevens' offense in the way that he had the tendency to have an outright lack of plays for the Celtics in that 17-18 season. And while Stevens did have some great play calls after timeouts and was a gifted coach, don't get me wrong, for most, people said that Stevens tended to lean heavily on the talents of his group and adapt his offense in that way for each player. So when you put two and two together with his rookie scouting report saying that he was best suited for isolation, and look at the Celtics roster in that rookie season, you begin to see that the offense for JT was much more catered to isolation play. And you also learn that JT has improved notably as an isolation scorer throughout his time in the league. Compared to 113 total isolation possessions as a rookie, where he'd end up with a 37.1% field goal percentage, in 2023-24, Tatum jumped to 464 total possessions on 43.1% from the field, sitting at a 25.9% frequency in his game. So then, strangely enough, despite the consistent concern about his weight and his decreasing bag, and all of the overall questions about his game and his supposed scoring arsenal, as it were, Tatum has, if anything, gotten better and more efficient as a scorer. So then, what happened to Tatum's bag and the rest of his game? Is it overblown controversy? Pure panic? Pure hate? Well, this is what we describe in basketball discourse as the quote, proification of a player's game. When I say proification, it refers to a way that a player with a quote-unquote deep bag or loose and innovative, aesthetically pleasing game entering the NBA can slowly become a mellowed out but extremely efficient killer in their scoring capabilities, and find new, unique, but still efficient ways to operate within the offense. Despite the claims and honestly video evidence that JT has changed from a fluid athlete to a more burly, less graceful sort of player, the reality is that this is the sort of player development that the league incentivizes, and honestly somewhat requires for players to sustain any level of greatness or a role within the NBA. This can range from Steph Curry packing on muscle to improve his capabilities as both a driver and cutter who endures consistent punishment at the hands of defenders, to Giannis's transformation from a decent three-point shooting forward to a physical force of nature. And although one-of-one cases like Kevin Durant, I guess, could be used as evidence for the contrary, ultimately, an exception to the rule is just that, an exception. The reality of the situation is that as a player matures within the league and defenses become accustomed to their game and their go-to shots, they require more and more efficiency to not only become a lethal scorer, but a consistent one as well. This is in part why that famous meme of Julian Newman's over dribbling, or that one guy GOY's on TikTok, or playing a game of 2K even with a dribble god can be so infuriating for fans and teammates alike, because within the realm of the game at a professional level, less is more. Furthermore, this point can even be used to identify why some players in the NBA are viewed as legendary scorers and receive the highest level of praise from their contemporaries and have cult fan bases. Because pros and fans alike understand that to have a bag at the professional level often means that it has to consist of moves that can be used to get you where you need to get as efficiently as you can over the course of an 82-game season. So in the case of Jayson Tatum's development, one can only assume, based on the numbers and the changes in his game from his rookie year to this past season, that his game was sufficiently proified. And this was reflected in the numbers and the ultimate result of the season, where he ended as an NBA champion. So all in all, I guess we could say the case has been closed. But that's gonna do it for this video. Please be sure to like, sub, and hopefully I catch you in the next one.